Hi guys, Jason and Nicole here from the Udderfarm. We're on the trial property this afternoon. What I want to talk about is what equipment you need to start regenerative farming practices on your own property. Basically, we started off here with split post fence and barbed wire. So that's a good place to start. Most people have already got that. You just need to implement the power or the hot wire to those split posts. That way it will enable you to run your poly lines or cables to be able to cell graze the animals. So basically we'll just start off with the power unit, guys. I've just got a Thunderbird here unit. That's good for 5 kilometers. I'll just turn it on, guys. So this has been powering up. So that's reading 5.9 kV. It fluctuates up to 7.3, and that's enough. Like it's 6 now, so it goes up to 7.3. That's enough for our property here. Like I said, I've got 2 acres here on the trial property. I've probably got 1.5 kilometers of wire. In the Thunderbird, it goes up to 5 kilometers. So I've got ample of power. From there though, guys, what you do need is a good insulating stake into the ground, a good earth rod. When we first started, we were just using black star pickets, just the painted ones. And what was happening is that coating was coming off, and where you had the alligator clip for the earth was actually rusting, and you find I was losing kilovolts because of the contact was poor. So what I went and did is I bought a 10 pack of galvanized rods. So that's a 6 footer, and I drove that right into the ground. So that's, it's more than 5.5 foot in the ground, and I'm getting another anywhere between 1.5 and 2 kV extra. So make sure you've got a good earth rod. They say, I won't go into it, I'll just go up for this property because it's only small. I'm only using the one. And I've got several of them around the property because I move the unit from time to time to different locations. But if you're on a bigger farm, they recommend 3, and they're evenly spaced apart. Don't quote me, but I think it's 8 foot. I'm yet to do the Udderfarm, so I'll look right into it. I'm sure it's 8 foot, 3 apart. You may need several locations around the bigger property to get a good earth. So that's very important, guys. And then what you can do is, we went round and we originally started, you can get the plastic insulators that screw onto the timber post, onto your split posts. We started with those, but what we're finding is they were a bit brittle, especially if you're hanging the Tarragate reel or your wire reel on those. There's a lot of strain on the nut, and the UV damage we found was breaking those insulators. So what we done then is, and also because of the weight, like I mentioned, with breaking the insulators, not only the UV but just the weight, they were bending and snapping, and not even UV damage, just from the weight over time. So what we ended up going with, guys, was we went round and we put star pickets against all our posts, and we went with the insulator, which is inside here, that goes onto a star picket. So it hooks on, and then you hook the wire goes through, and we found that a lot stronger than having screws into the post, which were constantly breaking off. So we learnt the hard. That's a good tip, guys. I'm just letting you guys know, because we done it the hard way. We're constantly doing repairs on the ones that are on timber posts. These here last twice as long. And what wire we use, we use a 2.5 here, but you can go down to 2 mil. I thought that, oh, geez, guys, I forgot that was off. When I done the demonstration, I turned it on. So yeah, well, by all means, do not touch the wire when it's on. It gives a bit of a tickle. And also, guys, when we come down further here, we'll go back to where we started from. I'll start by turning that off. It's only 5.9, but give me a tickle on the finger. So what we want then, guys, if you're going to run 2 lines, and we only were running 1 wire in this property when we started off, but what we found is we'll bring the weaners in here, we'll bring them in, weaners were in the yard, and then we bring them in here to introduce them to hot wire, and a couple of the weaners were getting out under the fence. So we ended up running a 2nd wire on the bottom to keep the weaners in, because they were crawling under the barbed wire, getting the grass, which was greener. Like I say, the grass is always green on the other side, but so we run one there. Once they got used to that wire, we had them in here. By the time we cell grazed them down for the week and moved them over, then we only required the 1 wire, because they were trained. They already psychologically knew that they associated pain with those wires. So the one wire after that was sufficient to hold them in. What you also need, guys, when you're starting off is just make sure you get insulated wire. You can jump the wire then, and the clamps, you can jump the wire to each other. That way you've got power running for the whole lot. I'm sure you guys know this, but yeah. And you will need some wire strainers to set up. So you just go them around the post, wire them on, and then yeah, you also need an insulator in front of that wire strainer, because that won't be insulated. You can get wire strainers nowadays that sprocket is actually insulated, so you don't need to have the insulator block in front of that. So we'll need blocks. If you got for this instance here, we've had a jump over the water trough. What you can do, guys, you can buy a roll of insulated wire. You can also use, we've done it here, we've got insulated wire. I'm going to run insulated wire from there down to the earth strap, because it's a bit heavier duty than that wire, and it just winds off. But you can get insulated wire. What we use this for is we jump across the head, because you don't want any of the wire being close to that metal, because if that shorts out or touches that metal and your cattle have got a drink here, you're going to shock them. So we run ours above our timber, so that's just the insulated wire you can get on a roll. That just goes across, and then it joins down back onto the fence the other side. So just don't worry about the knots, guys. They're not pretty. We've done that up a couple of years ago, and my knot tying has become a lot better since that. That's when I was only learning. So right, guys, what we're going to now is we'll actually go down the paddock. We've got a cell down there set up. We're actually rotating the girls through this afternoon, and we'll go through the equipment you'll need once your wires set up, your hot wires. We'll go through the equipment you need to make the cells to continually bring the cows through. So we, like I said, we have poly wires set up we use O'Brien step-ins, and that makes the block which we want them to graze in, and then move them out. So I'll go through that equipment when we get down the bottom there. Righto, guys, we'll see you at the bottom. Righto, guys, what I want to talk about now is what you need to do on the internals of your property. So you've already gone through having the hot wire around the perimeter on your posts and your charger. So what we're going to cover now are actually step-in posts. So these are O'Brien step-in posts, and these are what they call pigtail step-in posts. So they're metal. The advantages of both is you definitely need both on the property. This arrangement I've got here at the moment, this is what I used to use for my corners, but it takes a bit of setting up. I won't go into the setup, but if you want to use them for corners, guys, play with them. That does work, but they are pretty flimsy. Like, we've had a couple, you come down, if cows just knock it, and that falls out the ground, that falls out, then all of a sudden you've got no stay in that direction. If this comes out, got no stay in this direction, and they are flimsy, guys. We done these for 9 months, and it takes a long time to set up. So we went to the pigtails for our corners now, and they are a lot sturdier in every direction. If the cow bumps them, they got loads of movement. So my preference, well, it's not even a preference now, I always use the pigtails, the metal one, on the corners. But be careful, guys. I hunted around for decent sized pigtails. They have got pigtails out there which are really narrow. They wouldn't be much bigger than what I've got on the end of these O'Briens here. I'll show you what the end of one of these O'Briens look like when I can take that out. So they weren't much bigger than that, guys. That's probably 6mm diameter. This one here, I'm sure it's an 8mm diameter. Big difference in strength. I'd go the 8mm for the corners anytime. But where you really need the O'Brien step-ins, guys, is we set up some lengths here. There's actually, if the cowl focuses around here, you scoot down here. On the edges where we set up, you need them for setting up like that. And I'll go through why, and I'll show you why here. If you look at the pigtail here, that's good for the corners, because that's probably the right height you need the corners. But you need the O'Briens. When I first started out grazing the girls, they would be pushing the boundaries all the time on the wire. So we had one at the second one down, which is roughly 42, and we had one down there, which is roughly 8 inches off the ground. That way, because we had girls go under the 42, actually it's the white one behind me, she used to get air all the time. We run a second wire down, and we done that for probably 3 or 4 days. She got zapped a few times, never again. Now we've only run the 1 wire and no issues. So these are good if you are training, or if you've got sheep and you want to run them at a lower height where the pigtail's only got 1. So I predominantly use all these for straight runs. If I need to do a bit of a dog leg in the run I'm doing, if it steps out too far, I always use a pigtail, because these do flex a fair bit, guys. If you're going to use these on the corner and have any decent pressure on it, they do bend a bit. These pigtails are stout. They are nowhere near as flexible as these. So if I'm going out in the leg and I want it right on the corner of the dog leg, I'll put that, and then I'll go back to the O'Brien's. It doesn't matter, I use the hot wire. If you've got a second wire there, you can put it on an angle. So then, say if you put that down on the angle, you can run 1 wire through here, and this second wire to the O'Brien can come out in front of it. So it won't be, make sure it doesn't contact the metal, because it'll short out the earth. So that's basically the step in, guys. The only other thing you really need, I'll run through now, is the reels and the wire. We use the poly wire we run out. So what I'll do now is last section we'll go through the spools and the wire. Righto guys, I'll get that together and I'll come back. Righto guys, the last thing we've got to talk about is the reels and the wire. I've got 2 different reels here. The reason I bought 2 different reels is because there's a vast difference in price between the 2. I'll go through each reel first, and at the end I'll let you know the prices, and then you guys can make your own mind up which ones you want to buy. So as you can see, they've both got good solid handles, 10mm square. The plastic's different, but that doesn't make any difference for me. When it comes to the handles on top, the metal of the handles, obviously that's definitely 5mm. That looks like about 4mm. So I'm never going to break them. So that difference I'm not too worried about. They're both sturdy handles, guys. They're held in there by that nut. No issues there. Both got rubber handles, which is very important, because when you put these on, you're hooking them up hot. So I'll actually show you how to hook them up before I go any further, guys. Then I'll run to talk about the reels before I forget about it. Basically, when you're hooking them up, guys, when you come back, what you need to do is lock that reel in. I'll go through the locks in a minute. You bring the wire around. All you need is 3 turns on that hook. That sits over your wire. That's why that rubber handle is required, because the voltage will go through that steel section, and it'll go through the wire, and then it'll go back to your fence. That handle is there, guys. That gets hooked onto, if you've got barbed wire like I have in my trial property, that hooks onto the barbed wire section, and then the reel hooks back onto the hot wire, and that becomes electrified all the way through. But when you go to release it, the moment you take that handle off, or if you were to take that handle off the wire, then it's no longer electrified. You can touch that and wind it up back to your handle, take it off, and then move it to the next location. So went through that. So yeah, sometimes they come with the kit. That come with our kit, and I've got a couple of spares, but I've also got others that never come with it. So you just go to your shop and buy them. But I think predominantly 85% of the time you'll find that they come with the actual reel when you buy it. Righto guys, so the only other difference is, the reel's plastic. Both plastic. Can't see much difference really. The locking mechanisms here, this is a bit more looser. This locking mechanism here, it's not as wide as that one. That's a 10mm or 12mm. That looks like about 8 or 9. Pull them apart. That one is a bit looser. I could probably tighten the nut up. That one's a bit solder, whereas this one here, but I could tighten that nut up and it'd probably take that out. They both lock all right. I haven't any issues with them locking. So that locks them there. I also haven't had these on my quad yet. I haven't had these at speed, running them out with the quad. So I'll have to do a separate review then, but at the time, I can only review by walking these out along the paddocks. I've got no issues with this brace. That brace is a little bit more flimsier and lighter than the brace in front here. That's a lot solder. You can just feel the solidness on that. But you know what? This doesn't give me any grief. It is looser. That's probably all I need to cover on the reels, guys. I'll let you know here that that's a Tarragate reel. They are probably the best reel that I've used, or the best reel that I've got here at the moment. I can't remember the name of this one, but I know this was a $135 reel, and this is a $60 reel. I bought 2 Tarragate, and I went and bought 4 of these ones at $65. And using them here, guys, I have no preference, and absolutely no, you know, I said no preference in what reel I'm to use. I use both and have not noticed a difference. I wouldn't have a clue what reel I'm picking up unless I really have a close look. So I can buy 2 of these to 1 of the Tarragates. But like I said, I've only been doing it for 12 months, guys. Let's see in a couple of years if the UV resistances on both are just as good. Because they reckon these are the best you can buy, but when you're starting off, if you're looking to do it cheap, guys, 2 of these for 1 of these. And like I said, I've had these 12 months and no issues. Right guys, the last thing I'll cover is the wire. I've used poly wire before, guys, and I tell you what, I would not go back to poly wire again. Poly wire, it's woven together, and I didn't find the UV rating on the wire itself or the sheath actually broke down within a couple of years and was falling apart. I didn't find it strong at all. There's a lot of bare wires once it broke down, which makes it very dangerous to handle. The poly braid, on the other hand, it is neatly braided. It's a lot tighter together. It's not woven, it's braided, and hands down, and I think this is a 6-core poly braid, stainless, and this is definitely unbreakable. Compared to the wire, no comparison. I'll always use poly braid over poly wire. But you guys try both. I've tried them both, but my preference is definitely the braid over the poly wire anytime. Right guys, that's about it. If you like what you see, hit that like button, it helps the channel, guys. If you want to subscribe, by all means subscribe, and you'll get notifications when I'm putting up new videos. But other than that, guys, have a good evening, have a good afternoon, have a good morning, wherever you're watching this from, and we'll catch you later.